Perfect. Let's start off, right? So I have aptly titled this session as Mission CAT 2021 because writing CAT and getting into a B school is nothing short of a mission. And I also have a vision which says anyone can crack it, right? Because that's absolutely true. I believe that if you're completely aware about this exam, if you know what you're going to face, and if you can formulate the right kind of game plan and strategy, truly anyone can crack it. There is no reason why a particular student should not be able to crack it. And as we go along through this presentation, you'll hopefully understand why I am saying so, right? So as we start off, so this is the agenda, right? So this is what I'm planning to cover during the course of this webinar today. So obviously I'll tell you a bit about myself so that you don't feel like you're talking to a stranger, interacting with a stranger. I'll talk about why people do MBA, why you can do an MBA, what are the different advantages of doing an MBA. I'll also talk about what your options are, right, when you're looking to do an MBA, whether you want to do it from India, outside, things like that. What are the different options before you? The next is obviously you versus the B school. So it's not always that I want to get into a B school. The B school also has a criteria based on which they accept students, right? So that's what we'll talk about in that section. And obviously the scope of this session is obviously CAT, right? So we'll understand CAT in a much greater scope, in much greater detail, right? And obviously I'll talk about the organization that I'm representing today. Then we'll also talk about a recommended study plan, given that we have a year from now, right? So we're sitting in November of this year. And if you're looking to write CAT 2021, you're typically looking to appear for the exam in November next year. And if time permits, we'll also discuss some sample CAT questions so that you can be familiar with what the nature of questions are and what are the approaches that you need, or what are the methodologies you can use to solve some of these questions. And obviously the floor can be open to question and answers to answer any questions that or doubts that you might have. So first of all, a bit about me. I am a native of Trivandrum, Kerala. I have completed my education from Loyola School in Trivandrum from the 2005 ISE batch, post which I completed my engineering from College of Engineering, Trivandrum. I'm from the 2009 batch of Applied Electronics and Instrumentation. And I joined Nokia Siemens Networks after completing my engineering from campus. But I continued there for hardly 4 months. And for the next 3 years, I worked at a company called SPJIMR, based out of Bangalore and Chicago, which primarily is a pure play analytics firm. And it's one of the unicorns in India right now. And after around 3 years of work, is when I felt that, yeah, I want to do an MBA, because I mean, a career in analytics, a natural progression is obviously to do an MBA. Now, when I look back, probably if I had the awareness and the knowledge and probably the help of some mentors, maybe I would have, I would have written CAT back in 2009 itself from college, right? Because I felt that maybe 3 years work ex is a bit too much if you want to do an MBA in India. So in hindsight, I would have done it much sooner, right? But yeah, I resigned my job sometime in July 2012, and I wrote CAT in November 2012, right? So I prepared for around 3 months, and I wrote CAT that year, and thankfully I scored 99 percentile, and I'm a 99 percentiler. So I got a call from a lot of IIMs. I converted IMT, a lot of the new IIMs. I converted SIBM Pune, I converted IRMA. Out of the lot, I thought that SPJIN was among the top 5 B schools in India. And anyway, I always wanted to do marketing as my preferred stream. Marketing was my preferred stream. So that's why I decided to join SPJIN. So I joined marketing at SPJIN in 2013 and graduated in 2015. And I always wanted to be a banker because I come from a family of bankers, and it has always fascinated me. And which is why I ended up joining Axis Bank right out of college. I did my internship at Amazon while I was at SPJIN, right? So in B schools during your MBA, you also do an internship with a leading corporate. After spending some time in Axis Bank as a product manager, I joined State Bank of Mauritius, where I currently work as the Associate Vice President of Strategy. And obviously, as you must have seen in some of our messages, I'm also the co-founder and director of this new venture called Cat Avenues. So that's a bit about me, my journey, so that it kind of gives a perspective on why we are discussing all this today. It kind of establishes my credentials as well. And hopefully, it also kind of gives you the awareness to probably ask some questions around my experiences till now. I'm open to take those questions at the end of this session. Moving on, the big question, right? Why MBA? In fact, this is a question that you will be asked in your personal interviews as well, right? When you are trying to get admission into one of these B schools. So there are multiple reasons why people do an MBA, right? Typically, if you are a student, right? Probably, all of us, when we are in class 12, we actually don't have a great deal of knowledge on what our options are, what we actually want to do, right? In fact, I mean, that's the story for most of the people as they go along. They try to experiment a lot, and probably if you're lucky, you finally do realize at some point that, yeah, this is my passion and this is what I want to do. So what happens is that after 12th standard, a lot of your friends are probably writing engineering entrance exams, appearing for these entrance exams, and which is why you also decide to do the same, right? You also go along, appear for all these tuitions, entrance examinations. You appear for and finally end up joining an engineering college, maybe, right? Or maybe you end up joining literature or whatever that is. So my point is that at that point in time, you probably don't have a great deal of clarity on what you actually want to pursue, right, in terms of studies or as a career. So probably people are looking to kind of make a switch to an alternate stream, right? And obviously MBA gives you that flexibility, right? So you're trying to switch to another stream, right? Or for people who are working, it's also about career progression, right? Like, for example, I was a senior business analyst at SPJIMR when I was working, and obviously I wanted to move ahead in my career and I wanted to take up a managerial role, right? So the fastest way to do that is obviously to do an MBA, correct? So career progression might be a motive. There might be other people who want to learn the basics of business and thereby become entrepreneurs, right? They want to set up their own business. So probably they want to join a B school, learn the basics of business, and probably also get in touch with people with a similar mindset, right? So like-minded people with whom they would want to join hands and maybe set up ventures of their own. So that is another possibility. And obviously an MBA is a world of opportunities, right? Big corporates and businesses hire from all the premier B schools in India, so it naturally opens the door to some bigger opportunities, not to mention the fat salary packages that you end up with. Like for example, when you graduate out of a top 10 B school in India, your starting salary is somewhere around 20 lakhs per annum, right? So that's a lot of money. Imagine that you're just graduating out of school, right? Out of a B school. So you sit with a fat paycheck of 20 lakhs per annum, and it kind of doubles almost in around 4 to 5 years. So in 4 to 5 years time, you can expect to be taking home around 40 lakhs per annum, right? And obviously you are joining at a middle management level, so you are taking big decisions, you're rubbing shoulders with the who's who of the corporate world. Like for example, I'm working in the MD CEO's office in State Bank of Mauritius, where and I've also worked with the MD CEO of Fino Payments Bank. So you get to work and get to listen and learn from all the stalwarts and leaders in the industry. So that's another reason why people do MBA, or why you should do an MBA. And obviously, I think this is the most important. Okay, it does give you access to an influential network. Because imagine this: if you're studying in a premier B school in India, naturally you are also studying with some of the brightest minds in this country, right? And obviously, like you, they are also going to join the corporate world. They're going to join some of the best companies in India and abroad, for that matter, right? And of course, you have your alumni networks, and once you join a corporate, then your network builds further. So this is like a premium passport to a world of opportunities and an influential network. And trust me, I mean, it's been 5 years since I've done my MBA, and I think the greatest asset that I would claim that I've gained is the network, right? Because I mean, if you want to do something, it's just the matter of a phone call to some person in your network. I mean, if you can just think for 2 minutes, you will identify somebody who is there in some company or the other who can get that job done for you, right? So these are the reasons why people do an MBA. Now, if you look at what are the different kinds of MBA that you can do, right? The first one is marketing, right? So like for example, I have done my MBA in marketing, right? So typically what you do is you handle sales and marketing for a big corporate, right? So you might be in charge of the whole brand, right? Like what is a brand? A Dove or a Lux, these are all big brands, right? You might be in charge, and you might be in charge of a big brand, or you might be in charge of the whole sales channel for an organization, right? So typically fast moving consumer goods, or FMCGs as they are popularly called, hire heavily from marketing streams across the top B schools in India, right? Because they rely on distribution. Like for example, the soap or the biscuit that you buy, it's heavily reliant on your local shops, right? Be it supermarkets or kirana shops. So their main business is running that distribution channel. So that's what you'll typically do in if you've done an MBA in marketing. The second is obviously finance, where you join a corporate and you manage the books of that company. Okay, typically if you're doing an MBA in marketing, the natural career progression is you're trying to become the chief marketing officer of an organization. If we are doing an MBA in finance, you probably try and your aim is to become the chief financial officer of an organization. The third type of MBA is operations, right? Where yeah, ultimately your goal is to become the chief operating officer or the CEO, COO, and here you're managing the supply chain of an organization primarily. So in this new age, probably you can also think of setting up the entire delivery network of a business like the Swiggy or Amazon or Flipkart, right? So like for example, I have a classmate from operations who works in an Amazon warehouse in Bangalore. So he is responsible for optimizing the delivery time and things like that, right? And there is also a stream called as IT or information management, right, where you are typically in charge of managing the systems and architecture of different organizations, right? Typically, the career progression is to become a CIO. Also, you can also do a general MBA, right? You can be a generalist where you can do a combination of these streams. You can do an MBA in marketing and finance. You can do an MBA in marketing and HR, right? So you'll typically be a generalist. And obviously, the sixth is an HR, right? While the IIMs do offer HR, there are some institutes which specialize in HR, like the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai and XLRI, or Saviors as it's popularly called. These are the top institutes for HR because they specialize in HR, right? While the IIMs also offer HR as a specialization. These are the top institutes. There are also other institutes like MDI, IMT, Ghaziabad, etc., which offer HR as a specialization. But yeah, TISS or TIS and XLRI are the undisputed leaders in this space. So that is a general overview of why MBA, what are the different options that are before you. Obviously, this is not the agenda of our discussion today, but I thought that I'll kind of discuss this. Moving forward, so I think another big question that people will have in their mind is, should they do an MBA right now, given the COVID-19 situation, right? Uh, they might be thinking that anyway the economy is in a mess. Okay, I don't even know if people are aware of what's going on in the industry right now. But yeah, people might be thinking that because an MBA requires you to spend a lot of money, right? It is a huge investment in terms of both time and money. You might be thinking, is this the right time to do an MBA? You might be in doubt. You might be thinking that, okay, let me try and get a job right now, maybe, and when the market situation improves, maybe then I can try and do a MBA, and by that time hopefully the market would have improved, and I can get a job. But the fact of the matter is that you can do an MBA at any time, right? And if you think about it logically, right now the market is kind of lukewarm, right? There are not many job opportunities that are there right now. Obviously, people are in doubt on what they want to do. Companies are also not investing much. So for the current batch, which is passing out now, that it can be a tricky time. But yeah, obviously, they'll somehow overcome it. I have also gone through a similar phase in 2009 when I passed out of engineering, when we had the financial recession going on. But we all recovered, right? I mean, typically you do recover from these kind of incidences, or a recession in probably 12 months or 15 months or 18 months, right? That's what happened back in 2008 as well, when the global financial crisis hit us. So when you are uh, joining a B school, right? You'll write CAT or some other exam in 2021, and you'll be joining a campus in 2022, right? And you'll be actually sitting for placements in either 2023 or 2024, right? And by that time the situation should have improved and normalcy would have been regained, right? Because even now you can see that people are starting to get used to this, right? Because I mean, life has to go on. Obviously, it struck us as a surprise when the lockdown was announced back in March and April and all that. But right now, if you look around you, you'll see that, yeah, people have started going for work. Shops are running as they used to, with the right kind of precautions, obviously. Uh, so hence, people have gotten used to it. and slowly but steadily, normalcy is returning. And within a year's time or within 2 years' time, you can expect things to come back to normal. So you can expect 2023 and 2024 to be absolutely normal, and there wouldn't be any shortage of jobs, right? And especially at this time, when the job market is likely lukewarm, my suggestion would be to, don't settle for an average job right now. Rather, invest in yourself, right? This is the right time to join a course and, kind of invest in yourself, so that you are in a campus, you are studying a course, and let the situation improve by itself. And while and by the time you're done with this course, you're ready for placements again, which will be again, like I said, 2023 or 24, when the situation would have improved. And I think that's the logical way to think about it. So it makes a lot of sense to do an MBA, especially in during this time, right? Rather than going for an average job, rather than settling for an average job, you should invest in yourself and take the plunge, right? You should prepare for CAT. You should take up a course and go ahead with it. So when you're talking about an MBA, right? What are the options that are there in front of you? So you can either think of doing an MBA from India, right? Or you can maybe think of doing an MBA from across the globe, from outside India. So if you are thinking of doing an MBA from India, then obviously the options in front of you are to appear for the common admission test, or CAT as it is called. So the CAT is obviously accepted by the IIMs, right? The premier B schools, which are the IIMs. Then obviously there are other institutes in the top 10 like SPJIMR, FMS. There is SAT, right, which you can write. This is another exam which is accepted by XLRI, both for their business management program as well as their HR program. It is also accepted by other Savior group of institutions like the XIMB, which is in Bhubaneswar. There is this exam conducted by IIFT, or the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, which is again a top 10 institution. So if you go to our website, right, which is www.catavenues.com, you will see that you'll see a list of the top B schools in India, right? You will see that we have graded them according to their rating. So we have graded them as top 10 institutes. Then we have tier 1 institutes, tier 2 institutes, etc. So we'll be talking a bit about those in a short while from now as we go ahead. So yeah, IIFT is Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. They conduct their own exam called as the IIFT exam for taking students into their B school. There is Mudra Institute of Communications, Ahmedabad, which is an out and out marketing campus, and in my opinion, one of the best campuses to do a marketing MBA. It's called as MICA, and they conduct an exam called as the MICAT. There is SNAP, which is for getting an admission into the Symbiosis group of institutions. Their flagship B school being SIBM Pune, right? Symbiosis Institute of Business Management Pune. There's SEM HRD as well, which is a good B school in the Symbiosis group of institutions. Then there is the NMAT, which is conducted by Nasi Monji Institute of Management Studies, NMIMS as it's popularly called in Mumbai, right? So this is another exam that you can take. NMIMS is also a tier 1 B school in India. It's not in the top 10, but yeah, it's a tier 1 institute as per our rating. Like I said, you can check that out in on our website, which is catavenues.com. TISS or Tata Institute of Social Sciences, they offer a MA course in HR, right? It's not an MBA, but yeah, it is equivalent to an MBA, and it is the #1 HR program in India along with XLRI, right? So I mentioned this before as well. If you want to pursue an MBA in human resource management, TIS and XLRI are among the top options for you. And TIS conducts their own exam called as the TISnet, right? And if you want to appear for an MA in HR, you'll also have to appear for another exam called as the TISmat as well. But yeah, TISnet is the main exam, which is the qualifying exam. Of course, like I said, if you want to do an MBA in HR, there are colleges like MDI Gurgaon or IMT Ghaziabad, etc., which accept CAT scores, right? So those can also be looked at if you want to do an MBA in HR. There's MHCET, which is the Maharashtra CET. There is a top 10 institute called as JBIMS, or Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies in Mumbai, which accepts score, and for that you'll have to write this exam called as MHCET. And then there's CMAT and MAT. I'm not discussing a lot about these exams because the thing is that they don't get you an admission into the top 10 or the top tier 1 B schools in India, right? Because if you see, if you get a 99 percentile or 95 percentile in a CMAT and you get a 40 percentile in CAT, right? You pretty much get an admission into any of these B schools which accept CMAT scores, right? So what I'm saying is, if you get a 40 percentile in CAT, that is good enough for you to get an admission into any of these B schools who accept CMAT scores, right? So we won't discuss about that right now. That's not the scope of the discussion. So these are your options if you really want to pursue an MBA in India. CAT being the flagship exam, right? Which is why, as a tribute, we have also named our venture after that. That's obviously the flagship exam, right? And that's been the exam that has been, helping MBA aspirants get into B schools of their choice for a long time. It is a very respected and revered exam because of its construct, and it's the way it kind of filters out the people who write these exams. Now, of course, coming to, if you want to pursue an MBA from across the globe, GRE and GMAT are your options, right? Typically, but however, people do write a GRE and GMAT and pursue an MBA outside India after they get some amount of workings, right? That's when you typically want to do an MBA outside India for obvious reasons. Uh, that's a very heavy criteria or strong criteria based on which people are accepted into some of these courses. So if you are doing an MBA from India, the moment you exceed 3 years of workings, then you are going into a difficult territory in terms of getting placements, right? Because corporates who come for recruitments at these schools in India prefer people who are maybe less than 3 to 3.5 years of workings. So if you are looking to do an MBA from India, it's better that you do it as early as possible, preferably right out of an engineering college or after your graduation, or at least before, maybe within that 1 to 2 years of workx kind of time period. So that's about the options that are there before you when you're looking to pursue an MBA. At any point, if you have any doubt, please feel free to kind of type that in the chat box and I can try and answer that. Okay, moving forward. Now, like I said, when we come to this next section, which is U versus the B school, right? Now, why have I mentioned this as U versus the B school? Now, the whole point is that, yeah, I want to get into an IIM Ahmedabad, right? Or I want to get into an IIM Bangalore. But the important thing that you should realize is that these B schools also have some criteria basis which they accept students, right? Now, if you score a 99.9 percentile in CAT, probably that is not enough for some of the B schools. Okay, so we'll discuss that in a bit more detail in some of the following slides. But what I'm trying to tell you is that it's always a question of what I want, right? Which B school I want to join, and what kind of candidate the B school wants. So it has to be an intersection of both these, right? So there'll be a consideration set for you basis your profile. Like when I mean what I mean by profile is what are your 10th standard, 12th standard, and graduation marks. Are you a male or female? Do you have work experience or not? Are you an engineer or non-engineer? So that is what I mean by profile, right? Now, a lot of these schools have different criteria based on these different variables in your profile, right? And that is how you will decide if you really want to go ahead and pursue an MBA or that's how you will understand whether you stand a chance to do an MBA at one of these B schools. So the shortlist criteria is based on your CAT score and the profile weightage usually. Okay, that's so once you write your CAT and you get a score, then all the B schools release a shortlist, right? So that is typically done basis your CAT score and the profile weightage. And once you appear for the selection process that are lying ahead, which might be a written assessment test or a group discussion or a personal interview, then they calculate a final score basis which they decide whether to give you a final admission or not, right? So in that, obviously, then again your CAT score, your profile score, the scores from your group discussion or written assessment, and your personal interviews are taken into account, and then a final score is computed basis which they decide on whether to give you an admission or not, right? um, so what is the minimum percentile requirement in CAT, right? For some of the top IIMs, so I'm given the list of IIMs here, right? So if you look at IIM Ahmedabad, for example, so QA here is quantitative ability, right? And DILR is data interpretation and logical reasoning, right? This is called as quant. This is data and logical, and this is verbal aptitude and reading comprehension, right? So IIM Ahmedabad, for example, wants you to get at least 70 percentile in each of these three sections that are there in CAT. We look at the construct of CAT as an exam in some of the following slides, but yeah, and they want you to get an overall percentile of 80, right? Like, so what I'm trying to say is that if there is a candidate who has maybe 100 percentile, right? But he has scored only say 60 percentile in quant or 50 percentile in quant, then he won't get a shortlist from IMA. He won't get a shortlist, right? So as you see, each of the different IIMs have different minimum percentile requirements for each of the different sections, right? Now, if you look at CAT, I'll just touch upon it briefly. We are discussing this in more detail. CAT has three sections, right? One is quantitative aptitude, there is data interpretation and logical reasoning, and there is verbal aptitude and reading comprehension, right? So till last year there were 34 questions in quant, 34 questions in VARC, and 32 questions in DILR, which is a total of 100 questions which you have to answer in 3 hours. Now each question carried a weightage of 3 marks, and there was negative marks as well, right, of 1 mark for each of the questions, right? So that's the basic construct of CAT, and that is the premise for this minimum percentile requirement. So a doubt that you might be having is, if I manage to score a 90 percentile, right, will I get a shortlist from IMC? The answer is no. Okay, very important to realize that this is only the minimum percentile requirement. Okay, this is used to weed out people who do not satisfy this minimum limit. But if you get a 90 percentile, there is no guarantee that you'll get a shortlist from IMC or IMB or IMA or whatever that is, right? And if you notice here, IML has the highest minimum requirement, minimum percentile requirement, right? So what this means is that while you are trying to score an overall percentile, right, overall high percentile, you should also pay attention to each of the individual sections, right? You should pay attention to crossing this minimum percentile requirement in each of these individual sections as well. And you'll always have to watch out for these percentile requirements, because yeah, this may change every year. So you'll have to constantly watch out for this on their websites and on the CAT website itself, right? So that's on the minimum percentile requirement. What is important to keep in mind is that this is like a qualifying criteria, right? But this doesn't guarantee you a shortlist in any way. Moving on. So what exactly happens when you're getting a shortlist, right? So if you see in the previous slide, I told you that those were just the minimum percentile requirements, right? It does not guarantee you a shortlist, is what I told you, right? If you get a 90 percentile. So because each of these B schools have specific criteria basis which they release their shortlists. Like for example, if you look at IIM Calcutta here, right? IIM Calcutta won't give you a shortlist after you write your CAT if you have a percentile below 99.6, right? And what do you mean by percentile, right? So if I score 99 percentile, what that means is 99% of the people who wrote CAT are below me in terms of their score, right? That's what a 99 percentile means. So that means I am in the top 1% amongst all the people who wrote CAT. That is the meaning of percentile, right? So what we're saying is that if you have to get a shortlist from IIM Calcutta, you have to be in the top 0.4% of all the people who wrote CAT, right? Similarly, if you look at IIM Ahmedabad, for example, their shortlist criteria depends on the CAT score as well as the profile. So that means that if you can see here, they value diversity, right? They want diversity. They want academic plus gender diversity. So for example, if you are a BCom graduate, right, and a female, you might get an IIM Ahmedabad shortlist at maybe a 95 percentile or a 90 percentile for that matter. Okay, nobody knows how this is done. It's some algorithm that they use, but yeah, they value academic and gender diversity, right? So if you you are a literature graduate, for example, and a female, then you might get a call at 90 percentile, 95 or 85 percentile for that matter. And if you are a BCom graduate plus a male, maybe you will get a call at a 98 percentile, right? So it does not just depend on your CAT score, it also depends on your profile in case of these two institutes, which is IIM Ahmedabad and IIM Bangalore. That's what I'm trying to say. In case of IIM Lucknow, you do get a shortlist if your score is more than 99.2 percentile, and they consider work ex, gender diversity, 12th marks, and graduation, right? Similarly, if you look at IIM indoor, right, a percentile greater than 90 is enough to get a call from IIM Indore, but they consider gender diversity 10th and 12th marks. For IIM Kozhikode you can get a shortlist from IIM Kozhikode if you have a percentile greater than 98, and again they consider gender diversity 10th and 12th marks, right? And if you look at the category of the B schools here, like I said, you can go to our website, which is www.catavenues.com. We have given you the different ratings of B schools according to us. If you see IMA, BC, SPJIN, FMS, XLRI, all these are top 10 institutes, right? Below them come the tier 1 institute, which is your Tata Institute of Social Sciences, JBIMS, MDI, NITI, NMIMS, etc. Right now, SPJIN offers specializations in marketing, finance, operations, and information management. If you look at their admission criteria, right, it is a peculiar one, and I mean it stands out from the others. They also give a shortlist based on your profile as well as a test score. Okay, they accept CAT, SAT, and GMAT, by the way. Now, what do they mean by profile, right? They need state Kala Pratibhas, they need state cricket players, you need to have some national, if you have played for a sport at a national level or maybe in arts, right? They want that kind of profile. So even at something like 85 percentile, if you are a state cricket player, you can get a shortlist from SPJIMR. Else, the other way is to score high in your CAT or SAT or GMAT. Like for example, I scored above 99 percentile, which is why I got a shortlist from SPJIMR, and ultimately I ended up converting it. FMS is another top institute. It is amongst the top 5 according to me in India. The best part of FMS is that you can pretty much wind up your MBA within around 10,000 rupees, if I'm right, round about that figure. It gives the best ROI in terms of MBAs in India, followed by maybe the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, where you can complete your MBA in HR or ODCL. That's a new course that they've started in probably maybe under a 2 lakhs, right? So imagine that you're getting a package of 20 lakhs after you're getting placed. So that's like mind-blowing return on investment, right? You spend maybe just 10,000 rupees or a couple of lakh rupees, and you're getting a job with a salary that starts at around 20 lakhs. So that's mind-blowing. XLRI is another institute which accepts the SAT, right? Again, they only look at the SAT score. FMS also looks at only the CAT score. They don't look at any other variables like your profile and things like that. IIFT accepts the IIFT scores. This is wrong. Kindly ignore this. This is not correct. IIFT also looks at only the IIFT score, right? I mean, you typically need to score around maybe 45 to 50 marks, but yeah, obviously it will keep on varying according to the difficulty of the exam. TIS, like I said, you can look at doing an MA in HR or ODCL there from TIS. The cutoff again varies depending on the difficulty of the exam, but typically it's in the range of 75 to 85 marks for an HR course. This is the total number of marks, not the percentile. JBIMS, like I said, accepts the MHCT exam. You need 99.97 percentile, something in that range, if you want to get an admit into JBIMS. MDI is in Gurgaon, 97 percentile only score. NITI in Mumbai, famous for supply chain and operations. It's an operations campus. You need around about 97 percentile to get a shortlist from NITI. NMIMS Narsi Monji again accepts NMAT scores. You typically need a score of around 94 percentile to get a shortlist from Narsi Monji. So as you can see, it's a mix of your test score plus your different profile variables, right, which determines whether you will get a shortlist from one of these institutes, following which then you'll have to appear for further processes of selection, which might be a GD group discussion, a written assessment test, which is conducted mostly by the Indian Institute of Management or the IIMs, and following that there'll be a personal interview, after which they'll calculate a total score basis which they'll decide whether to give you an admission or not. Okay, moving forward, let's try and understand CAT as an exam a little better, right? So what does CAT consist of? Like I said, CAT as an exam, right, it essentially has three sections, right, which is your verbal aptitude and reading comprehension, data interpretation and logical reasoning, and quantitative aptitude, right? So essentially this is verbal, this is data and logical, and this is quant. And I've just given a comparison of CAT 2019 and CAT 2018 here. So in both these years, there were 34 questions in verbal and quant and 32 questions in DI and LR, right? Hence a total of 100 questions. Now this year, because of COVID-19, right, because of all the social distancing norms and things like that, they've actually reduced the duration of CAT from 3 hours to 2 hours, right? But they've not actually told how many questions are going to be there. So if you think about it logically, maybe you can expect to have maybe around 66 to 67 questions, right? It's going to be 2/3. They have in fact released a sample test paper, but I think that also contains around 100 questions. So they've not really told how many questions are going to be there in CAT 2020, right? But however, if you look at CAT 2021, which is going to be held next year, which people who are in the third year are going to write, there is no great clarity on what format is going to be followed there, right? I mean, your guess is as good as mine. Maybe they'll keep it as 2 hours, or maybe they'll revert back to the 3 hours format. But in any case, it doesn't matter according to me, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, you have to maximize your score, and hardly the number of questions matters according to me, and you'll understand why. Okay, and of late, CAT has also started giving you non-multiple MCQ questions, or TETA questions as they are called. Okay, so CAT traditionally used to be a MCQ based question, for where for each question you'll have 4 or 5 choices, and you need to pick the correct choice from those questions, right? But if you see in CAT 2019, there were 26 questions out of 100 questions which did not have a choice, where you had to just type in your answer, right? Similarly, for CAT 2018, there were 27 questions which were non-MCQ. Now, this is the important bit, right? If you look at these two sections, for getting a 95 percentile in CAT, right? And I'm talking about the net correct questions, right? The total correct questions after removing the questions which you got wrong, and got wrong from the actual number of questions which you attempted, right? So the net correct questions which you had to attempt in total for a 95 percentile was only 40 to 50 out of 100, right? So hence you needed to score only 50% of the total marks to get a 95 percentile, and for getting a 99 percentile you needed to score only maybe 60% to 65%, right? So that's the fact that many people don't realize, right? You need to score only maybe around 50 to 60% of the total marks. What are the total marks? There are 100 questions, right? And 3 marks each. So the total marks is around 300, correct? So if you can score somewhere around 180 and the 150 to 180, then you are very much in the running for getting a shortlist from a top B school, right? So that's what a lot of people don't understand and realize. Let's move ahead and see a little bit more on the structure of CAT. So look at this. I have given a comparison of the different kinds of scores that you need at different levels of percentiles, right? So if you look at CAT 2019 versus CAT 2018, for scoring a 99 percentile, right, you needed to answer 60 questions correct out of a total of 100 questions, right? And don't look at the exact conversion. You also had to get a net score of around 158 in CAT 2019 to score a 99 percentile, right? A 99.9 percentile, you needed a score of 196 and maybe correct questions in the range of around 64 net correct questions, right? Out of a total 100. So in my opinion, getting a 99 percentile is not that difficult a task. Okay, we look at some of the reasons why people don't score as much or don't do so well in CAT, right? There are multiple reasons for that. We look at some of these reasons, but what I'm trying to tell you, what you should understand is that you need to score only 60%, right? In that range, 50 to 60% to be in this range, in the top 5% who of the people who are writing CAT, right? To score a 95 percentile or a 99 percentile. That's the important factor that you have to keep in mind. Moving on. Let's look at each of the sections in some more detail, right? So here, if you are looking at the VARC section, which is the verbal aptitude and the reading comprehension section, there are typically 34 questions in this section. Like I said, when it used to be around about 3 hours, right, in terms of duration. So this is based on the 2019 question paper model. This year, like I said, it has been reduced to 2 hours, but we don't know how many questions are going to be there, right? So this is based on the 2019 model, like I said. And typically in reading comprehension, you had around 5 passages, which consisted of 24 questions, right? And out of these 24 questions, 13 were fact-based questions and 11 were inferential questions, right? So these should have been attempted for sure, okay? Because these are fact-based questions. You should have been able to read the passages and you should have been able to spot the answers of these questions, right? And in addition to these 24 questions, there are also 10 questions which are verbal aptitude based questions, which add up to a total of 34 questions. Now among these 10 questions, you had para jumbles, para summary, and spotting the odd sentence out of a list of sentences, right? So you would have been given a list of 4 or 5 sentences, and you had to find out the sentence which was the odd one amongst those list of sentences. So typically, given that the whole exam is of 3 hours duration, and probably you have maybe an hour duration for each section, maybe you could have attempted, maybe a good attempt would have been 3 passages plus 7 or 8 questions from this verbal aptitude section, right? So if you see, what I'm saying is that if you could attempt maybe 17 questions correctly, okay, net correct questions, you could have easily gotten a 95 percentile. And if you could have attempted 22 questions in total, you could have gotten a 99 percentile. Now, when I say 22 questions, right, how many marks is that? 22 into 3, which is 66, right? Whereas the total section, right, is equal to 102 marks, which because there are a total of 34 questions. So if you see, if you can score just 66 out of a total 102 marks, you could have easily landed a 99 percentile in the VARC section, right? So ultimately here, if you realize, the whole trick boils down to identifying which are the easy questions and attempting them, right? Your objective when you're appearing for this exam is to maximize your score. And how do you do that? You give yourself a chance to maximize the score by going through all the questions, right? And then picking the easy ones to attempt and leaving the difficult ones, correct? That is how you will be able to maximize your score, because this exam has been designed in such a way, it is a mix of easy and difficult questions, right? It's like playing a game. You need to have a fixed game plan or strategy, and you need to stick to that game plan on the day of the exam, okay? And one game plan among that is you need to read all the questions, and you should be able to judge whether a question is easy or difficult, and then you should be able to take a decision on whether to attempt it or not, okay? So if you look, when you start preparing for CAT, you will see that the questions that are asked are mainly from your 8th standard, 9th standard, or 10th standard. So the questions in itself are not that difficult, okay? They are framed in such a way that it would require you to think a bit to identify the right answer. So sometimes that can be time consuming. So when you're studying, you're actually practicing a lot, and you're developing a perspective to look at questions, which will enable you to identify the easy questions and the difficult questions in the exam, right? And of course, you will also write a lot of mock exams to practice this skill. So in my opinion, the key skill that you need to learn or you need to develop is that ability to pick the easy questions and leave the difficult questions, which in turn can help you maximize your score. Because if you see, you need to score maybe only 50 to 60% to get a decent percentile and get a shortlist from some of the good B schools in India. That is the fact that you should understand as an aspirant. Moving on, let's look at the next section. DILR section, the data interpretation and logical reasoning section. Now, if you ask me, this section it mainly consists of puzzles, right? And some questions based on a set of data which you have been given. Okay, so if you look at the construct of this particular section, it contains around 12 questions which are data interpretation questions, right? What are data interpretation questions? You might be given a graph, okay, and then you'll be asked some questions based on it. Now this graph can be a bar graph, or it can be a line graph, or it can be a very simple table which contains data, right? Or it can be just a caselet, right, which has a lot of sentences and which describes the nature of the data that's given to you. So if you look at 2019, right, which is our point of reference, you again had 32 questions in the DILR section, and out of that 12 questions were from DI and 20 questions were from logical reasoning. So out of these 32 questions, what we are saying is that if you could have answered 12 questions correctly, you could have easily gotten a 95 percentile, right? And if you manage to score around 18 questions, you could have safely gotten a 99 percentile, correct? So in total, if you observe, there are 8 sets, right? 8 sets and 32 questions, means around 4 questions each per set, right? So if you had to answer around 18 questions right, you needed to answer only maybe 4 out of the 8 sets, right? So if you could answer 4 out of the 8 sets, you could have easily scored a 99 percentile in this section as well. Now, when I'm saying you need to answer 4 out of the 8 sets, right? You will see that typically in any CAT paper, you will have around 3 easy sets. Okay, you will have 4 moderately difficult sets and 1 difficult set, right? 1 difficult set. So if you could attempt all the 3 easy sets and maybe if you could attempt 1 moderately difficult set, right, you could have easily scored a 99 percentile is what I'm trying to say. Again, in this section, it all boils down to your ability to read all the questions and all the sets and your ability to choose which set to attempt, right? You'll typically give maybe 3 minutes or 4 minutes to read a set, understand it, and take a decision on whether to attempt it or not, right? So you should look at that as an investment, right? It shouldn't be like this set looks lengthy or this graph looks complicated, so hence I'll not read through it. More often than not, this is what I've observed in CAT when they give a complicated graph, right, or a new graph. It is usually a very easy question. Okay, so that's where most people lose out on. So the simple fact that you have to keep in mind is go through all the questions, invest those couple of minutes to read that question and understand if the question is easy or difficult, and then you have to make a choice on whether to attempt it or not. Okay, so essentially thumb rule is that, yeah, you need to attempt maybe 3 or 4 sets out of a given 8 sets to score around about 99 percentile or upwards. It's that simple. If you can develop the ability to understand the difficulty of a question, that would help you do really well. And how do you practice the DILR section? Because this is typically not a subject, right, that you learn in school or anywhere. The way to practice DILR questions is to practice past CAT papers, right? Practice questions from past CAT papers. That's the best way to practice DILR sessions. And obviously, in our classes, we'll tell you a lot of shortcuts and tricks on how to do calculations faster from a data interpretation perspective, right? But yeah, it requires a lot of practice. If you can practice a lot of puzzles, I think that will be helpful, right? Puzzles involving seating arrangements and so on. Those are the kind of questions which are typically asked. We'll probably try and solve one kind of logical reasoning question today in this session towards the end. But yeah, that's about the DILR section. Next, let's go to the next section, which is the quantitative ability. Now, if you look at the quantitative ability, again, there are around 34 questions in this section, right? Similar to the VARC section. And if you look at the topics, right, the topics from which the questions are asked, it is your 8th to 10th standard math, right? It is nothing complicated. So if you look at the topics, the topics are algebra, right? Basic arithmetic. What do I mean by arithmetic? Time and work, time, speed and distance, ratio, proportion, percentages, averages, etc., and so on. Number systems, modern math. Modern math is again your permutation, combination, probability, set theory, and so on, right? Mensuration and geometry. If you see, the bulk of the questions are from algebra and arithmetic, right? Which are very simple and basic topics like percentages, a ratio, proportion, averages, right? Time, speed, distance, and so on. So it's I mean, these are topics that you have learned while you were in college, sorry, while you were in school, right? And so you know these topics. It's just a matter of revising them, and it's just a matter of developing a perspective on how to solve these questions from the perspective of an examination like CAT, given that there is a time constraint, and given that you are given a task of maximizing your score, right? So even in this case, uh, the idea is the same, right? So pick the easy questions and leave the difficult questions. So if you look at what kind of coaching or mentoring or training you're going to get, you're obviously going to be introduced to a lot of basic concepts, right? And you're going to practice a lot of questions, right? And in effect, okay, we are going to help you understand which question to answer and which question to leave, right? So you will ultimately be able to develop an ability to pick the easy questions and leave the difficult ones. That's the key skill that you will need to acquire over the next 6 to 8 months, and you'll need to fine tune that and practice that when you give a lot of these mock examinations. And if you look here, like in case of verbal and LRDI, you needed to answer only around about 20 net correct questions to get a 99 percentile, right? And about 15 questions, right, to get a 95 percentile, right? If you look at my case, I mean, I told you, right, I'm a 99 percentiler. I scored, I think, so during my time we had around 60 questions in all, and I think it was 2 hours. I think in and quant and DI were, there were only two sections, quant and DI, and there was logical and verbal. So there were two sections, right? So that way it was good. You needed to clear the cutoff for only two sections, and I think I managed to write or get a net correct of around 22 out of 30 in quant and DI together, and in logical verbal again around about that range, right? 21 out of 30 or something like that. So that's what my score was when I wrote CAT in 2012, which finally allowed me to get an admission into one of the top B schools in India. So it's not about answering a lot of questions, right? It's about answering the maximum number of questions in that given amount of time. Let me put it that way. Okay, moving on. So yeah, if it was so easy, right? If it was just the matter of scoring around 50% or 60%, right? Answering maybe 50 or 60 questions out of a given 100 questions, or in other words, scoring maybe around 150 marks or 180 marks out of 300 marks. Why aren't all the people doing it if it's so simple? Right? Point number one is, not all people get the right kind of mentoring, right? Not all people are exposed to this kind of perspective. Not everyone realizes that this is what it is all about. All people look at the huge number of a 99 percentile or a 99.9 percentile or a 100 percentile and get intimidated, right? They look at people around them getting these percentiles and they assume that they would have, attempted all the questions and maybe they are extra brilliant, right? There are a lot of myths around all these facts. The whole purpose of this session is to bust all those myths, right? That's what I aim to do. According to me, why a lot of people don't write this exam is because they are intimidated, they believe they can't do it, okay? Or a lot of people try and write these exams and give up midway, right? Because they accept defeat even before writing the exam. So within their mind mentally they give up. The people who stick on, right, and the people who don't panic, and the people who develop the understand this exam well and develop the right kind of game plan and strategy, the people who understand that the game is all about picking the right battle, right? The people who understand that the game is all about picking the right kind of easy questions and the low hanging fruits, answering them and moving on without any fuss. Those are the people who score the 99 percentiles or the and above, right? The people who realize this very simple truth, and the people who won't panic and go ahead and execute this simple strategy on the day of the exam. Those are the people who eventually do well, right? uh, a very simple mistake that people do, I can tell you, is that they don't go through all the questions, right? I mean, in an exam, obviously the question paper is going to be a mix of easy questions and difficult questions. So probably the easy questions are spread out, right? And they are towards the last part of the exam. So if you sit and sequentially attempt the questions, obviously you'll run out of time and you will miss out on answering some of these easy questions, right? So that's a cardinal mistake that people commit. They don't go through all the questions and they don't pick the easy ones to attempt, right? And some people just go and attempt it without any game plan or strategy. They don't understand what this exam is, like I told. They just go and try and attempt all the questions and get confused, and they don't have any strategy to back them. Another, the last I mentioned there, that's a common mistake, right? It's a mind game that the exam plays on you. Now, the difficulty of cat, right, varies from year to year, but what you should realize is that if the exam is difficult for you, it is difficult for other people as well, right? And you are being scored relatively, you are being compared relatively, right? You're not being graded on the absolute marks that you're scoring, right? The good part is that the shortlists that are being rolled out by all the premier B schools in India, it's based on a percentile. So if the exam is difficult, you shouldn't panic, right? You should stick to your game plan and strategy. What is the variable under your control? Those are the questions which you know the answer to, right? Stick to that game plan, answer those questions. Don't guess answers. If you're going to guess answers, invariably you're going to get a lot of them wrong, and that is going to bring down your percentile down by a huge number. Okay, even one wrong answer can drag you down by a huge number, and that's going to impact your percentile. So the whole idea is, I'll summarize it this way: understand what this exam is all about, right? Formulate your strategy, fine tune it when you're writing your mock exams, and have the basic common sense, or be level headed to not panic and to execute that strategy on the day of the exam, right? The simple way to go about it is give yourself that chance by going through all the questions. Give yourself the chance of deciding which is the easy question and which is the difficult question, which is the question you should attempt and not attempt, right? Thereby giving yourself a chance to maximize your score. So that's the reason why people don't do well in these exams. Moving on. So having said all this context, I also want to take this opportunity in this webinar to introduce this new venture that we are starting off. We are a team of the top 10 B school alumni, right? We are a group of people from the top 10 institutes like the SPJIMR, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, XLRI, and the IIMs. We have set up or started this initiative because we understand what it takes to get an admit into a top 10 B school, and we are also people from the industry. We are working in the industry right now. We know what it takes to get into one of these top B schools, and we know what it takes to shape a career out of an MBA, right? So that's why we decided that let's come together and help out some of these future aspirants on how to first build awareness about the exam and then build the right kind of strategy that can help them do well in these exams. We will also provide end-to-end mentoring, right from mentoring you and coaching you for CAT itself, that is writing the exam itself. Obviously the journey doesn't end there. Then you're once you get a shortlist, after you have scored well in this exam, you also have to go through the writing assessment test and the group discussions and the personal interviews and so on. We'll also guide you during that phase. According to me, CAT and all the exams are just maybe 40% of the whole journey, right? The toughest part is the other 60%, which is the GD or the writing assessment test and the personal interview itself, right? You all these B schools expect crystal clarity from you on why you want to do an MBA and what your plans are, and things like that. So that's the phase where you'll need a lot of polishing and mentoring and guidance on how to fine tune your story and how to go and sell yourself eventually, right? At these personal interviews. We at CAT Avenues, we believe in a hybrid model, also taking into consideration the current situation, right? So we'll have a mix of online classes and physical classroom-based sessions, right? We are planning to, or rather, we have centers at Trivandrum, Kollam, Thrissur, etc. I think 3 centers right now. So once the government issues guidelines on how physical classrooms can be conducted and when they can be conducted, we will start off with the actual classroom sessions. Till then, the plan is to conduct online sessions, and obviously the recorded videos of these sessions will be available for students as well. We also plan to give scholarship for high performers, right? We want to incentivize, motivate, and reward students who are doing well or students who have done well till now in their graduation. And we'll also be conducting a series of exams which will help us gauge students who are doing well, right? So we plan to give scholarship and reward students who are doing well. So it's a unique idea and a unique initiative that we want to start off with, and we are looking for quality students, right? We believe that obviously all students have a great quality, right? But we want to mentor you and we want to provide you the right kind of guidance, because ultimately what we are saying is that anyone can crack it, right? So what we are saying is that with the right kind of guidance and the right kind of mindset and the right kind of attitude, uh, and with a focus on concept-based learning, any student can crack it. That's what we want to achieve. That is the vision that we have for this venture called CAT Avenues. So this is a study plan that we have prepared for 2021 for students who are going to join us. Essentially, we are looking at a year's time, right? So uh, around April or May of next year, starting from tomorrow, uh, you know, we want to complete our concept-based classes in quant, verbal, and DILR. And from around about May of next year till November of next year, when CAT is expected to be conducted. Within that period, typically students will be writing mock exams, analyzing those mocks, holding discussions with faculty, and faculty in this case, in our case, in case of CAT Avenues, are going to be alumni of premier B schools, right? Like I said, our classes are going to be conducted only by B school alumni. That is what we believe in. And obviously, while you are writing these mocks from around May till November of next year, you'll also be able to fine tune a lot of the strategy that we are going to expose you to. And like I said, it's going to be a mix of online plus classroom based hybrid sessions, right? So we're looking at around 200 hours of classes, which will be a mix of uh, uh, actual concept based sessions and maybe small assignments or tests. You will also write a lot of mock tests, like I said, especially between May 2021 to November 2021. There'll be a lot of sectional tests based on each of the topics that you can attempt. Obviously, and also there'll be a daily GK capsule that we'll be releasing, right? Because a lot of these exams like the TISNET, IIFT, SNAP, and all these exams have GK as a component, right? They have some questions that they ask from static GK and current affairs. So we'll be kind of creating this module on a daily basis as well, where students can refer to topics on current affairs and static GK. And obviously, once you have written CAT and you get a shortlist, we'll also mentor you and coach you and guide you on the next level of selection, which is your writing ability test, your group discussion, or personal interview, right? So that's the study plan that we are foreseeing for the batch that is going to work with us for the batch which is going to take CAT in 2021. So this is a sample question that I've given here, right? Which is an actual CAT 2019 question. So can one of you maybe try and solve this? Any idea on how to go ahead with this? Does it look like an easy question? Does it look like a difficult question? Any thoughts? Okay, Shreya is saying, could we possibly assign values to A1 and A2? Can you be a bit more elaborate, Shreya? What do you mean by assign values? This is a CAT 2019 actual question. What do you mean by assign values? Okay, see here. This question, the moment you look at it, it can be intimidating, right? Because you've been asked to find the value of a very complex equation. Shreya saying these numbers are in AP. Okay, I mean with common difference too. Okay, I mean you're partly right, Shreya. Okay, so we'll have to make some kind of assumption to solve this. Okay, if you're going to sit and simplify this equation theoretically, you are not going to reach anywhere, right? So what we'll assume is that the AP is 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., and so on, right? That's the assumption that we'll make, correct? Because this has a common difference of 1, right? It's the simplest AP that you can think of. And this term here, right? It's giving you sums till the nth term, correct? So what if I just assume that n is equal to 1? I just look at one term, correct? So if I look at one term, what will be the first term there? When I'm saying n equal to 1, I'm looking at only one term, right? So what is the term there? It is 1 by 1 plus root 2, right? Why? Because a1 is 1 and a2 is 2, correct? So the first term here will be 1 by 1 plus root 2. Now what do I need to do? I need to just go back and check in the options, right? Substitute n is equal to 1 and see for n is equal to 1, which one matches this. So if you look at the first one, obviously this is not the right answer. The numerator will become 0. Again, this is not the right answer. I'm left with both these, right? So in this case, what will it be? 1 by 1 plus an plus 1 is a2, right? A2 is 2. Perfect. That's matching, right? So 3 is the right answer. So I hope you understood. So this is a very easy question, right? people, when they read this question, they can tend to get intimidated by this question. Okay, and there's a chance that they might actually leave it. Okay, but if you practice a lot of questions, you will develop these small tricks, and you'll develop these ways of looking at questions, right? And you'll kind of develop these small tricks of substituting values in choices and so on, and easily arriving at the answer. So in this case, this happens to be the answer. Hope that is correct. Can we move on to the to another question? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Shreya and Aisha. Okay, let's move to the next question. I hope this is clear. The next question is also from CAT 2019. Okay, this is a question from data interpretation and logical reasoning. Okay, so here, if you can read the question, it says there are 4 finalists in a dance competition, right? Which is Princess, Queen, Rani, and Samragni. Ashman, Badal, Gagan, and Diyu were 4 music composers who individually assigned items to the dancers. Each dancers had to individually perform in 2 dance items assigned by different composers. Okay, the first items performed by the 4 dancers were all assigned by different music composers. Okay, no dancer performed her second item before the performance of the first item by any other dancers. The dancers performed their second items in the same sequence of their performance of their first items. Perfect. Okay, these following additional facts are known. No composer who assigned item to princess assigned any item to queen. No composer who assigned item to Rani assigned any item to Samragni. First performance was by princess. The item was assigned by Badal. The last performance was by Rani. This item was assigned by Gagan. Items assigned by Ashman were performed consecutively. Number of performance. Okay, perfect. So what we'll try and do is we'll try and create this table, right? 1, 2, there are 8 performances. Okay, and let this be the dancers and let this be the composers, right? So what information are we given? The first performance was by princess, right? These two seem to be very easy clues. The first performance was by princess. The last performance was by Rani, right? That's what we've been given. Princess's performance was assigned by Badal, okay, the composer. So this is the dancer and this is the composer. The last performance was by Rani. This item was assigned by Gagan. Okay. Okay. What other information can we gather? The items assigned by Ashman were performed consecutively. Okay. So there are 4 dancers, and the first items performed by the 4 dancers were all assigned by different music composers. No dancer performed her second item before the performance of first item. The dancers performed their second items in the same sequence of their performance of their first items. Okay, perfect. So the only way in which the items assigned by Ashman can be performed consecutively is if Ashman composes the 4th and the 5th item, right? There is no other way in which Ashman can compose items consecutively. Like for example, it can be Ashman can't compose 2 and 3, right? because the first items performed by the 4 dancers were assigned by different music composers. So Ashman can't do 2 and 3, right? It has to be 4 and 5, right? The last one in the first set would be Ashman, and the first one would be Ashman. Okay. What other information are we given? The number of performances between items assigned by each of the remaining composers was the same. So obviously B will feature again in this area, right? So can B come here? If B comes here, then you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Yeah, perfect. So that means then D can come here, correct? That means D can come here again, and this will be G, correct? So 1, 2, 3, 4, correct? Between D there are 4 composers, and between B also there are 4 composers, 1, 2, 3, and 4, correct? So it is based on this point. The number of performances between items assigned by each of the remaining composers was the same. Okay, so we've gotten this as well. Now what other clue has been given? No composer who assigned item to princess assigned any item to queen. So Q can't come here. Okay. No composer who assigned item to Rani assigned any item to Samragni. Also, the dancers perform their second items in the same sequence. So Q has to come here. Okay. And if you look at it, Rani should come here. Samragni cannot, no composer who assigned item to Rani assigned any item to Samragni. So Samragni can't come here because Rani is mapped to A. So Samragni has to come here. Okay. So that means we are left with P here, right? So P is QR. So again, the same sequence in the first set, correct? Because the dancers perform their second items in the same sequence of their performance in the first items. Okay, so we've completed the table. Okay, this is the sequence in which the performances were completed. So now let's look at the question. Which of the following is true? The third performance was composed by Ashman. No, the third performance was composed by Gagan or G. The second performance was composed by Du. Yes, that is right. That is correct. Okay, so that has to be the answer. Yeah, Shreya, it's right. So 2 has to be the answer. But we'll go through the other choices as well. The second performance was composed by Gagan is not true. That's incorrect. The third performance was composed by Du, again incorrect. So yeah, second is the right answer. Perfect. So that is a logical reasoning based question. This is a verbal aptitude based question. Okay. So this is again an actual CAT 2019 question. 4 sentences have been given below, and when properly sequenced, they will yield a coherent paragraph. What is the proper sequence of the order of the sentences? Okay, so we are required to order these sentences in the correct sequence. Now, if you look at this, let's go through the sentences. If you've seen a little line of text on websites, they say something like customers who bought this also enjoy that you have experienced this collaborative filtering firsthand. So this can't be the first sentence, right? It says you have experienced this collaborative filtering. So this is definitely not the first sentence. The problem with these algorithms is that they don't take into account a host of nuances and circumstances that might interfere with their accuracy. Again, I don't think this is the first sentence. There is no context here. There are a lot of pronouns, etc., which have been used in this sentence. If you just bought a gardening book for your cousin, you might get a flurry of links to books about gardening recommended just for you. The algorithm has no way of knowing you hate gardening and only bought the book as a gift. I don't think so. Let's look at the next sentence. Collaborative filtering is a mathematical algorithm by which correlations and co-occurrences of behaviors are tracked and then used to make recommendations. So this looks like a perfect candidate for the first sentence, right? Because this is introducing a noun here. It is a definition. It is explaining what collaborative filtering is. We saw collaborative filtering as a term being used in one of the other sentences. So this should definitely, 4 should definitely precede 1, right? So let me write it like this. 4 should definitely precede 1, and I think 4 is the first sentence. Okay, please note that this is not a MCQ, right? This is a non-MCQ, or this is a theta kind of question, correct? Where you're not given the options. You are expected to type in the answer. In this case, you have not been given a multiple choice. You've not been given choices here. Okay, so 4 should precede 1. The problem with these algorithms is that they don't take into account a host of nuances and circumstances that might interfere with their accuracy. So I think 4 and 1, if you read it together, 1 should follow 4, and 3, if you read 3 appears to be an example for 2, right? So I think it should be 4, 1, 2, 3. 3 appears to be an example or an instance that further elaborates sentence 2. So I think the correct order should be 4, 1, 2, 3. So yeah, that is another question from verbal aptitude. This is a para jumbled question, and it is a non-MCQ, right? So the thing with non-MCQ is they don't have negative marking. Non-MCQs don't have negative marking. So while you may be tempted to sit and attempt these questions, please remember that this can also be a trap. Why? Because there is no negative marking, you will tend to sit and solve this at any cost, but it can also lead to a wastage of time, right? Because there is no option. Typically, para-jumbled questions are best answered if there are choices available, so you can eliminate a lot of the options. Also, you use technique like mandatory pairs, right? Like in this case, 4 and 1 has to be a mandatory pair because of the mention of collaborative filtering, right? So once you have identified 4 and 1, you pick the option which has 4 and 1 together and you get done with it. But when you don't have an option, it becomes challenging. You have to go through all the sentences and work out a logic, right? So that can lead you to waste a lot of time. So that's why it becomes tricky. So it's not that the idea is simple. Even though there is no negative marking, please understand that this can be a trap, right? Have the guts to leave a non-MCQ question as well if it's consuming a lot of time. So that's something that students will have to keep in mind. Don't deviate from your strategy. Also, another trap can be if you read a set, right? And there are 4 questions in that set. If you have solved 3 questions and maybe if the last question attempts seems to be difficult, you should have the guts to leave that and move on, right? Don't let your ego come in between, right? Because remember, your objective is to maximize your score. So yeah, we've come to the end of the webinar. These are our coordinates. Our website is www.catavenues.com. You can go to the website and we've given a host of information there. You can look at the list of top B schools there. You can also look at the criteria of admission that are followed by a lot of the IIMs. We have also uploaded some sample course videos there on our website, which is www.catavenues.com. So you can also view some of those course videos, right? And see if you like them. If you have any queries or doubts, you can always call us on this number. This is also our WhatsApp number, so you can feel free to get in touch with us. If you have any doubts that you want answers to or want to get clarified, this is our email as well, which is crackcatavenues@gmail.com. So feel free to get in touch with us. We are starting off with our classes tomorrow, so students can kind of see join the first 3 classes, see if they are able to get accustomed to the online mode of studying, and then decide whether they want to continue attending the next set of classes, and whether they want to look at us as a long-term option if you are writing CAT 2021. But in general, yeah, we are always here to help us. You have our coordinates. Always feel free to get in touch with us. Now, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Yeah, Shreya, if you want to register for the class, you can call on this number, or you can WhatsApp on this number, and our team will get in touch with you. In any case, whoever has registered for this webinar will be sending you details of our class. Like I said, all of you can attend those classes, the next 3 classes, that is, and then take a decision on whether you want to continue attending our classes, and whether you need our assistance for CAT 2021 or any of the other MBA entrance exams for this year, right, which is TISNET, which helps you get admission into Tata Institute of Social Sciences, or SAT for Saviors, IIFT, or any of those exams of that sort. Like I said, we will also, in addition to quant, verbal, and logical reasoning, we will also have daily GK capsules, right, which will be a set of 20-25 pointers based on the current affairs for that particular day, so that you can also target these other exams in addition to CAT. Because what I'll suggest is to not put your eggs in put all your eggs in one basket, right? Don't just focus on CAT. Keep your options open, right, so that even if for whatever reason you're not able to do well in CAT, you have your other options also available, like the IIFT and SAT and TISNET and things like that. So that would be an intelligent move. So for all those exams, you'll also need to brush up a bit of your GK, and the best way is to keep preparing on a daily basis, right? So yeah, any other questions? Okay, all right. I don't think there are any other questions. So thank you very much. A big thank you to all of you who attended the session today. Uh, you can always get in touch with us, like I said, on our numbers or email. You can also visit our website for more details. I wish you all the best. Hope to work with some of you, and hope to be a part of your dream of joining one of the premier B schools in India, and hope to kind of be in touch with you all. I'm sure all of you will do great in your life, in your careers, and hope to see some of you as great leaders of the future. Thank you all. Have a good day.